Welcome to Sister Scoot, where we are covering the big three Marvel news topics for the week and getting into our very first one because there's a lot of great news. Apparently, the Punisher will be reprising his role, maybe not next, but in Spider-Man 4, which is really exciting. We haven't seen these two characters together. Quite frankly, we haven't seen much of the Punisher outside of Daredevil. So this is great news as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, especially when you think about what's potentially on the docket for the Punisher specifically next year. So, knowing some of the kind of slate changes, we now know that the only film earlier in the year before December is going to be the new Spider-Man 4. And so then you think about the Punisher. Well, he's likely going to be in Daredevil season 2, which probably going to be around March or April. I think they're trying to put that out at the same time that they did with season 1 or season 4 or 5, however you want to call it. And then they talked about as well doing that special presentation. Now, I know we've theorized in the past that the special presentation could be in between seasons 1 and 2. Now I think it might be in between potentially his appearance in season 2 of Daredevil Born Again and his appearance in Spider-Man 4. So that's a really, really interesting year for that one character to be in 3 different properties.
It is, and it's interesting because he's yet to like the special presentation will be great, but that's still not really like the Punisher show.
Yeah.
So they actually really haven't greenlit him having a continuation of his Netflix series just yet. We have no word on that, but he is going to be apparently appearing in quite a few things regardless, which is exciting. He's a great character. I also think to me it confirms some stuff about Spider-Man 4 when you think about what we were hearing and obviously some of the changes that have been happening as far as movement in the slate and everything else. If the Punisher is going to be in Spider-Man 4, that's starting to make me think, okay, we're going grounded again because he's like the epitome of your grounded superhero. He literally just shoots, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean like his literal weapon is guns. He's not out here throwing magic around.
No, I mean, you're not going to get Frank Castle. I mean, look, you might get him in Doomsday for like 5 seconds because I don't know that they're going to keep anybody out of Doomsday, but you're not going to see him as a main important character driving a plot line in a multiversal story. So I think you're right. I think it does start to give some hints about what Spider-Man 4 could be. Then you layer in the fact about these slate changes with Doomsday, where they could tell a grounded Spider-Man story and then free him up to be in Doomsday. Remember, Spider-Man is one of the few characters out of the whole roster who was not confirmed for Doomsday. And I think potentially some of that could have been scheduling. They're working on Spider-Man 4 now, I believe. So,
I think or soon.
Yeah, like especially if it was going to be right after Doomsday, like they have to be close to production, finishing up pre-production. So maybe this frees him up to be able to do both, come in later at the process of Doomsday to be able to shoot a few scenes. Maybe he's not super prominent and then we'll be more in Secret Wars because I don't really know how you have Secret Wars and don't include Spider-Man, but that could be why they're doing that, so that he's not just like cold entering Secret Wars when he wasn't in potentially the setup film.
Right. I do think it'll be interesting for both of these characters as it goes forward. But we're going to stay in this realm as we go on to the next topic, and that's discussing Daredevil season 2. And honestly, quite frankly, I don't think this really shocked anybody when we saw the news. I should say by anybody, I mean between the two of us. I don't think
clearly
either of us
statistically relevant.
yeah. Not sure we were shocked by this, but it seems that the Defenders will be playing a role in Daredevil Born Again season 2. I don't think anybody who watched Daredevil Born Again season 1 is surprised by this news. I think we were talking about it already in the finale. We were like, so we expect Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and I guess if you gotta throw Iron Fist in there too, sure. But we expect them to appear. You can't have this kind of season and the effects of it in a bubble anymore. Like it doesn't work.
I definitely agree. I think it was also, kind of hinted at when they brought Kristen Ritter out and we're like, hey, cool, she's back, which was an amazing announcement, like super exciting. But it also, I think we talked about it when that was announced, like, all right, you might as well just announce everybody else because there's
Yeah.
no way you're just going to bring back Jessica Jones and not bring back the rest of the crew. I think the only real question mark then, and spoilers for Iron Fist season 2 if you haven't watched it. If you haven't watched it, I understand why. It took me a long time. Which Iron Fist are they going to bring in? Because Danny Rand no longer holds the mantle. Colleen Wing does. So is it Danny or is it Colleen? Is it both of them? That's also a possibility, but only one of them is going to actually be like the official Iron Fist. Danny can still kick some butt, but that'll be kind of interesting too if they continue from, and they continue from that storyline where she's actually holding the mantle and he can kind of be her assistant versus like how it was in the earlier season.
Yeah, it'll be kind of interesting. Honestly, this sounds horrible. My gut kind of says just recast. Let's just pretend Iron Fist Netflix series didn't really happen.
I don't know how you
Listen,
do that.
I
If it's a
mean,
like it was a very connected universe, and
I
you've
know.
not just brought
I
back
know.
one, but two,
Oh, I
and
know.
maybe three.
I know as I'm saying it, but like my gut is kind of like it is the biggest stain out of the Netflix shows. And Marvel has the opportunity to bring these characters into a bigger universe to tell bigger stories that they are involved in that the Netflix shows couldn't. And so a part of me is like, do you keep that mistake? For continuity reasons, do we keep that stain?
Hear me out. Hear me out. It wasn't the cast. Like the guy who plays Danny
No,
Rand was
that's
in
fair.
like Game of Thrones. So like I do think if you give these actors the writing level of the MCU, like I don't know what happened in the writers room over at Marvel when you ripped out four, if you count the Defenders, 5 good shows and then you wrote that slop. I'm not really sure what happened, if it was the same writers room or not. But now you're going to have potentially a writers room that is working, like you said, with the rest of the MCU, has found success with Daredevil Born Again. I would assume it's a similar writer's room. I mean, obviously it would be for season 2, but if they were to continue the story of Iron Fist, it could potentially be a similar writer's room who's going to have more success and be better at writing an actually interesting story than what we saw in especially season 2 of Iron Fist. So I don't want to like punish the actors for some really shoddy writing over at
No, but I
Netflix.
do think unfortunately that shoddy writing, I get it. It's even if you don't necessarily recast, I think you have to bring into question like, do we ignore it for this series or not? And then I think that if you bring back the same actors, it's like, okay, but if we do decide to ignore that storyline and what happened in that show, and we just like redo, let's just say retcon essentially Iron Fist, but with the same actors, now is that confusing for the continuity? You know what I mean? So I think like I think it'll be interesting to see who shows up on our screen when we watch Daredevil Born Again season 2.
Yeah, I think that is a very healthy mindset to go into it with.
All right, well, on to our last topic, and honestly, this one brings me the utmost joy because I'm still salty that the whole world like hated this movie. Apparently, the Eternals will be actually returning in the next saga, so we probably at this point, I would assume we'll not be seeing them in Doomsday or Secret Wars at all. That's going to be my assumption. But they will be returning in whatever the next 3 phases or 4 if we break the mold will be, which I think a lot of rumor has always been it's going to be really big. I know they used to say Galactus, but that's kind of happening in Fantastic Four, so I'm not really
In
sure.
a different universe.
True, but will they want to do it again and have him be the big bad when they've already? It would be like Kang all over again, where they were like, let's shove him in Ant-Man, but also he's supposed to be the big bad. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, look, I'm thrilled. To your point, I think we both really, really liked that film. And they're such fascinating characters. They're really different than almost anything that we've seen in the MCU. And I think they're actually kind of, to me, similar powers wise and makeup wise to the X-Men in the sense that like everybody has their distinct powers, but they all work together as a unit, which yeah, sure, that kind of works with the Avengers, but you still have your like ground level folks of the Avengers, whereas like the X-Men and the Eternals are all very like enhanced individuals. So I think that's one of the reasons I liked them so much is they have this like really cool, just like everybody's unique but like cool team moments.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much to explore with them from like a cosmic level. And I know we've kind of been for the last 2 years putting that on the side. Like we were going cosmic hard for a while, and then we kind of put that on the side. I know I did see a rumor that the next phase was going to be split into 3 pieces: cosmic, street level, and then magic, which is kind of interesting. I don't know that I necessarily think that's what they're going to do, but if they do decide to go really cosmic for the next set of phases, I'd be kind of into that, because I think there's a lot of stories that could be told. We know Star Lord is still out there, and he hasn't, been announced for anything recently, but he's still a character that I think a lot of people would like to continue seeing. We have an entire Guardians new group, new roster. So there's a lot of stories to be told up in that realm. The Marvels are still up there. And I think the Eternals and via them, the Celestials could be a good like starting point, because they are kind of the centerpiece of, or they could be the centerpiece of the cosmic realm.
I would actually like to go off that and just say I could actually see them making a Celestial be the big bad of a next phase.
For sure.
I do think, knowing that the mutants are kind of also in this picture, I'm not entirely sure how that would work. But then again, like, I don't know, now we're sitting here with Doctor Doom coming in, and I never would have considered Doctor Doom your big bad. So I think they can be made to work with a mutant storyline just as much as it would work with your cosmic characters, because we know
The
they're not
X-Men go to
siloed.
space.
Yeah, exactly. And we know they're not siloed. So I do think that could actually be a really good direction, and that would help bring in the Eternals very seamlessly into especially what they are known for, which is obviously they're originally there to help the Celestials be born. That's their purpose. And so I do think that could be quite an interesting direction to take it, rather than something like Galactus, who we will be seeing in Fantastic Four.
Especially if you think about, we have a Celestial partially, coming out of Earth. So that could even tie in as well.
Like,
Yeah.
let's not forget that, like, was it Cersei was taken captive? Like, they're mad that this happened.
Well, and then it's like coming at it from 2 realms. You have the Eternals who are doing their thing out in space, but then you also have the ramifications that we're just starting to see of them actually stopping. That's not Tiamat, is it? Yeah, Tiamat from coming out. It's Erisham who's mad.
Yeah.
I always get their names confused. But like, that's the other piece of the story too, is like the actual ramifications of their story on Earth, and whether or not they're super involved in that doesn't matter. It's still connected to them. You can't tell that story without them. So I think there's just a lot of room for them, and I'm glad that Marvel's finally looking at it and being like, actually, that hate was unwarranted, because it's a really good movie, and
it is.
Stop being annoying, fandom, when you're being like this. Like, don't be narrow-minded.
Yeah.
That's just my soapbox, but I really love that film, and it annoyed me that everybody crapped on it.
And they left like two open-ended things at the end. So
yes.
I think I'm excited. I am excited about even just getting the news. The breadcrumb is all I needed. Like, I'm just looking forward to them actually knowing they'll make a return. But that has been this week's Sister Scoop. We will be back next week with 3 more Marvel news topics. And as always, be keeping up with the podcast. And make sure you guys are following us everywhere so you guys know what's going on. See ya.